Tonight, when darkness arrives, you will touch a small switch on the wall, and the night will simply obey you. Light will fill the room instantly, and you will keep living your evening as if the sun had never left. You will eat late, scroll late, work late, because the darkness that ruled your ancestors has no power over you anymore. But somewhere deep inside your body, an older clock is still running, and it has never accepted this new arrangement. That clock was set by 100,000 years of real nights, and it still expects the darkness to win. This is the story of the single invention that rewrote human sleep, and why your body never signed the agreement. To understand what was taken from you, we need to go back to a night before any switch existed. Imagine a world where sunset was not a suggestion but a wall, ending the day for almost every living person. When the light faded, the fields emptied, the tools were set down, and entire villages surrendered to the dark together. A candle cost real money, and for most families, burning one for hours was a luxury they could not afford. So people went to bed early, wrapped in blankets, often 2 or 3 hours after the sun had disappeared. And here is where their nights became something you would barely recognize, because they did not sleep straight through. They slept in 2 separate blocks, with a quiet waking hour resting in the middle like a hidden room. The first block began early in the evening, and carried them gently through the first half of the night. Then, somewhere around midnight, their bodies simply woke up, calmly, without alarm, without fear, without any sense of failure. For an hour or more, they lay awake in the dark, and this hour belonged completely to them. Some prayed quietly, some talked with the person beside them, some simply stared into the dark and let thoughts wander. Writers of that era mentioned the first sleep and the second sleep casually, the way we mention breakfast and lunch. Nobody explained the pattern in old letters or diaries, because nobody needed to, since every reader already lived it. This was human sleep for thousands of years, shaped by darkness, protected by darkness, and completely dependent on darkness. Then, piece by piece, humanity started building weapons against the night, and the first one was made of gas. In the early 1800s, gas lamps began glowing along city streets, stretching the evening hour by hour. Shops stayed open later, streets stayed alive later, and the old wall of sunset started developing its first cracks. But gas was expensive, smoky, and dangerous, so inside most bedrooms, the ancient darkness still ruled the night. The true breaking point arrived in October of 1879 inside a small laboratory in New Jersey. A man named Thomas Edison sat watching a thin thread of carbon glowing inside a small glass bulb. The thread burned for hour after hour without dying, and Edison understood that the night had just lost the war. He was not trying to change how humanity slept. He was simply trying to sell a better kind of light. But inventions do not care about intentions, and this one was about to reach into every bedroom on Earth. Within a few years, entire streets glowed, then entire neighborhoods, then entire cities that never truly went dark again. For the first time in human history, ordinary people could hold back the night for as long as they wished. And almost immediately, the world discovered something it had never possessed before, a night that could be used for work. Factories realized their machines no longer needed to rest because electric light made midnight as productive as noon. The night shift was born, and millions of workers began living against every signal their bodies were sending them. Meanwhile, at home, the evening stretched longer and longer, pushing bedtime further from sunset with every passing decade. People who once slept 2 or 3 hours after dark now stayed awake 5, 6, 7 hours past it. And here is the quiet mathematics of what happened next, the part almost nobody noticed, while it was happening. When bedtime moved closer to midnight, the night became too short to hold 2 sleeps with an hour between them. The 2 blocks were squeezed together, pressed into one continuous stretch, and the quiet middle hour was crushed between them. Nobody voted on this, nobody announced it, and no newspaper reported that an entire human experience was quietly disappearing. Within roughly 2 generations, the memory of the 2 sleeps faded so completely that even the words became strange. By the 1920s, doctors were describing one unbroken block of sleep as the normal and healthy human pattern. Anyone who woke in the middle of the night was now told that something inside them was broken. Think about how strange that is, because the broken ones were simply sleeping the way every ancestor had slept. A pattern older than agriculture, older than writing, older than every city, was erased in a single human lifetime. And the strangest part of this story is that the erasing was never actually finished inside your body. In the 1990s, a researcher named Thomas Wehr decided to test what darkness would do to modern people. He asked volunteers to live with 14 hours of darkness every night, roughly what a natural winter once provided. For the first weeks, they simply slept long hours, paying back a debt most of them never knew they carried. But then something remarkable happened, something none of the volunteers had ever experienced in their entire modern lives. Their sleep split into 2 blocks, with a calm waking hour in the middle, exactly like their distant ancestors. Nobody taught them this pattern, nobody suggested it, and yet their bodies rebuilt it from memory within a month. The old sleep had not died with the invention of the bulb, it had only been buried alive underneath it. Which brings this story directly to your bedroom and to something that may have happened to you last night. If you sometimes wake at 3 in the morning, calm at first and then worried, listen closely to this part. That waking may not be a malfunction at all, but an old signal rising from a very deep place. Your body may be attempting its ancient second act, opening the door to the quiet hour it once owned. The panic only arrives afterward, when your modern mind checks the clock and declares the whole event a failure. Your ancestors felt that same waking and simply rested inside it, because nobody had ever told them it was wrong. The insomnia so many people fight at 3 in the morning may partly be a memory fighting to come home. None of this means you should abandon electric light, because the bulb also gave humanity gifts beyond counting. Hospitals stay bright through the night, books get read after dark, and no child fears the cost of a candle. But every gift has a receipt, and this receipt was written in the sleep of every generation that followed. We gained the evening and lost the quiet hour, and most of us never knew a trade had happened. So tonight, notice the moment you press that switch and think about how recent this kind of night truly is. Your great-great-grandparents likely knew the 2 sleeps, and their bodies passed the blueprint quietly down to yours. Somewhere under your habits and your screens, that blueprint is still waiting, patient in the way old things are. And if the dark ever finds you awake at 3, remember that hour once had a name and a purpose. You are not broken. You are simply an ancient sleeper lying in a world that Edison lit too well. Tonight the light will obey you again, but the night remembers, and so, somewhere deep down, do you?